Oh, layers. Onions have layers. Ogres have layers. Get it? Here's a look at the brand new McFarlane toys. McFarlane Toys Digital, DreamWorks, Shrek. Shrek goes on a quest to rescue the feisty Princess Fiona with the help of his lovable donkey and win back the deed to his swamp from the scheming Lord Fogwa. Straight from the swamp. How about the first thing we do is we grab the tape measure and we see how tall the brand new McFarlane Toys Digital Shrek stands. Speaking of McFarlane Toys, I'd like to thank the team there that did provide the sample we could have a look at. Shrek's pretty tall. He's actually standing at about 10 3/4 of an inch in height, or roughly 27 centimeters tall. So I wouldn't consider this so much a Shrek figure as he is a limited articulated statue. We are also going to be looking at, in an upcoming review, the dragon from Shrek. Speaking of dragons, I did also want to bring in a couple of figures for comparison's sake, because we don't have, of course, that other dragon looking at it yet. I'm going to bring in one of the dragons we got from Todd and his team. One of the coolest dragons around. Also, as well, I want to bring in some slightly larger figures as well. Here's what the figure looks like with Sigor. And just as well, giving you guys an idea, I'm sure we're probably going to be getting some of the smaller figures as well. Maybe Lord Farquaad would be an awesome figure, as well as Fiona. But in the meantime as well, everybody has, I'm sure, a Nightfall Batman. Here's what Shrek looks like along with him. Short offerings get packed along with this large ogre. Shrek, first of all, does come included with a display stand, but then he also comes included with two cards. One being just a regular card that does have him and Donkey featured on the front. Nice image. I like the look of that. Of course, if you flip it around to the back, his real name, though, if you didn't already know, is Shrek, and it gives a very small, easy-to-digest read-up. Also, along with that, too, you get yourself a redemption code card from McFarlane Toys Digital. I haven't yet scratched this. I figured I'd wait for the beginning of this review and show you guys. If you wanted to redeem this for yourself, you just go to www.mt, I think that's mtdgg. You probably see that a little bit better. I could probably even see that a little bit better. Just simply go to that site and go to the redemption option. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to scrape across the top of this just with my knife. Just with McCutcheon's here so you guys can see. Now, if you are one that likes to use these codes, by all means, feel free. Take a good gander at that. Write that down if you want to. I'm sure you probably could even freeze the screen as well. Let's move that off to the side. The figure does also, like I said, and I don't really want to say this necessarily as a figure. Again, you'll see in a second, he's very limited on articulation. A very large display stand, though. This stand does have McFarlane Toys printed across the front here. Nice and blue, nice and white. It does have a peg that can plug into either one of his feet. Realistically, Shrek doesn't even need the display stand if you don't really like the idea that this is going to be taking up a little bit more space. I mean, really, it's about the same size of space as his shoulders anyways. You could really do away with this altogether, and the figure, as you can see, stands fine on his own. But if, let's just say for this, you make use of these pegs, you just simply attach it onto the display base. Just get that onto his feet like that. And now you got sort of a nicer way, I think, to present the figure on your shelf. When we look at the dragon, I'm sure we're probably going to have a very similar style of stand. For all we really know as well, the dragon might not even have a stand, but we're not going to get too ahead of ourselves here. So here's one thing, though, about Shrek. I'm just going to remove him right now. I'm going to put the base off to the side. Even though he does have really gripping hands, the figure doesn't come included with any accessories whatsoever. Here's where the limitations, though, come to Shrek. Now, you may be looking at this and thinking to yourself, well, at the very least, he probably would have, though, right? Like, you could be able to rotate his head? No, you can't. Well, you might think, okay, well, you probably can move his waist, right? No, you can't do that either. The only thing that the figure has at his disposal is a swivel in his arms. That's it. You'd be able to move it all the way around, technically, if you want. And like these arms either don't hinge outward either. I mean, really, all you can really do is just move them forward and back. And he doesn't have hand articulation either. If you go into that with that full idea in mind, I don't think you'll be disappointed with Shrek. Now, if you're going in this with the mindset that this should be a fully articulated version of Shrek, then maybe disappointment will then follow along with that. I think the head sculpt is fantastic, though. If you're a big fan of Shrek, I think they've nicely captured the look of it. Originally, it was going to be done by Chris Farley. I'm sure many of you guys already know that by now. So you can really kind of see Chris Farley in the way that Shrek was designed. Of course, Mike Myers then took over the role afterwards. Head sculpt looks really good, though. I can't help but really feel, though, that the way they've molded this, they probably have done this in a translucent plastic. There sort of is a little bit of translucency to it. Not that you would be able to really see my hand going behind it, but it sort of has the kind of translucency, kind of plastic look to it, if that makes any sense at all. It's nicely painted. Of course, you got the one eyebrow raised up, and the other eye is sort of more in a neutral stance. Because he's also got no articulation for his head, what they've done then instead is they've got his eyes kind of off to the side here instead of looking front and center. So to give it a little more of a dynamic look, you can actually put this guy on his display base like this instead of this. So you can actually look like he's looking out this way, kind of a side eye. My daughter seems to like to do side eyes as of late. But nicely painted. I mean, I have no problems whatsoever with the way they painted the head. You got nice little spots there across the top of his head as well. Again, not really anything in the way of articulation for this figure, but I think he has it where he needs it the most. Of course, he does have his vest on there as well. That's nicely been painted. It kind of gives it the look that it looks like it's made of like a leather material. And of course, he's got himself his burlap sack kind of tunic. He has, for the most part, paint generally well done. You can see as well, like his nails painted decently. I have one issue over here where it's like, yeah, it's this thumb nail here that you can see some of the paint has bled around it. It's not the cleanest, but for the most part, like no complaints at all with the paint other than just like that one little area there. The pants look generally quite good. Of course, he does also have his ogre shoes. Probably not a good idea to get so close to his feet like this. I don't think he's bathing himself that regularly. And as I already mentioned, the figure does have pegels on the bottoms of his feet. I know we've already kind of covered the territory of this, but again, there's no articulation. I was kind of even thinking for a second, like maybe I haven't budged it yet, but it doesn't even look like there's a cut line right there that would suggest the idea. Oh, he's looking right at us too. He's looking right at us right now. Yeah, but there's no cut line right here. So there isn't any way to move the head whatsoever. Again, you're only going to have really just the arm swaying back and forth. That's about all you can really do. No hand articulation either as well. And again, like no waist articulation. So like the figure is really, again, I would feel more in the category space of statues with just a little bit of posability rather than a fully articulated figure. Could they have found a way, maybe perhaps to put articulation in the waist? Yes. Could they have maybe also done a way to put that also in the head? Sure. The thing about that, though, is that you have to also consider this as well. Is licensing fees. McFarlane and his team is no different than any other toy company on the market right now. To acquire license, let's say license A right here, some licenses may be a little bit more expensive than others. DreamWorks, I would imagine, is a pretty more heftier price to pay when it comes to licensing of getting the likenesses to the characters. And that probably was the reasons why as well. I don't think there's a large mass of collectors out there that are saying to themselves, like, I would love to get Shrek collectibles. I would be a big fan of Shrek collectibles, as you probably can already see in this review. He's limited, yes, but I think he has to be limited for the reasons of more so the things that go along with him behind the scenes. You have to pay for, of course, the likeness rights from the studio, the company that's producing these characters in the first place. Because of that, I would imagine that they probably offset some of the expenses with kind of downgrading some of the posability that this guy ends up possessing. What he has, though, instead is, again, only in the arms. But I think what he gets instead, though, is a well-sculpted likeness to Shrek. Of course, when it comes to his accessories, I don't know if you really would consider this necessarily an accessory, but again, he gets himself a display base. I am looking forward, though, to getting open the dragon. We will be looking at that one in an upcoming review. Dragon's got a little bit more of assembly that's required because you're going to have to put the wings and everything on that. Shrek, straight out of the box, is one that could be displayed right away on the shelf. Is he limited on articulation? I know I had already said this already. Yes. Does it make it any less of a figure? Not at all. I think he still is a well-sculpted, well-painted piece. I'm happy finally to be getting some Shrek collectibles from the folks over at McFarlane Toys. Apologies, by the way. I kept referring to the other character as simply Dragon. We all know that Dragon has a name. It's Elizabeth. So Elizabeth, the Dragon, her review will be actually coming up shortly just after Shrek here. Both of the figures do come included with display bases. Elizabeth, the Dragon, though, a little bit more of an elaborate display base. She comes with a grassy knoll. Is it a grassy knoll? Does have those Shrek featured on the front of it. It's kind of weird, though, that Elizabeth, which we'll be talking more about that when we look at the review of her, does come with a little bit more of an interesting display base, while Shrek, though, is kind of a little more relegated just to a regular black display base, no different really than some of the statues we've also gotten from Todd and his team. Could they have maybe included, at least at the very least, maybe some accessories? Yeah, sure. I mean, one thing, too, if they have to downgrade some of the articulation on this character, maybe they could have, just for that, included a couple of accessories for something for him to hold in his hands. Whether we will, though, be getting Lord Farquaad, maybe Fiona, maybe even at the very least, Donkey. I sure hope so, because Shrek and Elizabeth the Dragon, I don't think is nearly enough for especially Shrek fans. What do you guys think of this statue? Let me know down below in the comments section. I had to stop for a second, not say figure. I guess it is still a figure. It's just a figure with a little bit more limited posability points. Big thank you once again to the folks over at McFarlane Toys that did provide this sample of the brand new McFarlane Digital. This was the DreamWorks Shrek. If you guys did enjoy this video, do it a solid. Throw it a like. You guys want to stick around for more so? I hope so. As already mentioned, we will be looking at Elizabeth the Dragon. Her review will be coming up shortly. And, of course, there's going to be a whole bunch of other McFarlane Toys stuff coming your way. As always, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.